I was halfway through my first beer in 3 years when my phone lit up like a Christmas tree. The notification wasn't polite. It was that angry buzz that usually means someone just deleted the production database or a data center caught fire. I'm Scott Reynolds, 55 years old, and I've been keeping Data Vault systems running for the last 22 years. This was supposed to be my first real vacation since my wife passed 2 years ago. The sun was setting over Yellowstone. Those massive peaks looked incredible against the sky. I was exhausted down to my bones. 22 years of 70-hour weeks. 22 years of eating gas station sandwiches for dinner. 22 years of being the guy who fixes everything when it breaks. My military training taught me discipline, but corporate life tested every ounce of it. Before I tell you what that notification said, let me paint the picture. I built Data Vault's entire cloud infrastructure from scratch. Back when we started, the company credit was maxed buying fancy chairs for the founders. I used my personal credit card to spin up the initial Azure instances. I registered the domains, set up the security groups, wrote the deployment scripts. Over the years, I tried transferring everything to corporate accounts, but legal kept saying we'll handle it next quarter, and finance said, just keep expensing it, Scott, it's easier for accounting. So there I sat in the middle of nowhere, Wyoming, holding a phone that was about to ruin my life. The email was from Brian Clark, our CEO, a guy whose understanding of cloud architecture was limited to knowing it sounded expensive and lived somewhere up in the sky. Brian was the type who wore those puffy vests to board meetings and used words like synergy and digital transformation while cutting our training budget to save pennies. The subject line was blank. That's never good. It's like getting a phone call at 3 a.m. Silence means trouble. I opened it. 2 sentences. Effective immediately. Your services are no longer required. Don't bother returning to the office. I read it once. Then I set my beer down and read it again. Then I read it out loud to a curious elk that was watching me from across the meadow. Don't bother returning to the office. No thank you for 22 years of service. No explanation about restructuring. No severance package discussion. Just a digital slap in the face delivered to a man who is currently 2,000 miles away from the server room he built. I felt nothing. Not angry, not sad, just empty. Like someone flipped a switch. I thought about the last 2 years. I thought about the night my wife died. I was in the hospital waiting room, laptop open, migrating our database because Brian insisted we couldn't afford downtime during business hours. I missed holding her hand in those final moments because I was troubleshooting a connectivity issue with our backup systems. I thought about all the Christmas mornings I spent on conference calls with offshore teams. I thought about training every junior developer who walked through our doors, teaching them not just the technical stuff, but how to think systematically, how to build things that last. I was the foundation. When the network went down, Scott fixed it. When the servers choked on Black Friday traffic, Scott rerouted everything. I was the invisible backbone of a $180 million company, and they just fired me via email while I was wearing hiking boots. My first instinct was to call HR, but then I remembered HR exists to protect companies from lawsuits, not employees from incompetent management. My second instinct was to throw the phone in the lake. But my third instinct, the one that made me good at this job, kicked in. It was the instinct that analyzes systems, identifies weak points, and executes solutions. I took another sip of beer. The alcohol burned pleasantly. I looked at the email again. Brian thought he was cutting dead weight. He thought I was just another line item on a spreadsheet, an expensive legacy employee who didn't fit the new vision. What Brian didn't understand, what none of those guys in suits seemed to grasp, was the architecture of the machine they were riding. They thought the cloud was some magical thing that just worked. They didn't realize it was a system built by human hands. My hands. More importantly, they didn't realize whose name was on all the accounts. I opened my laptop. The hotel Wi-Fi was terrible. Barely enough to stream a movie, but plenty for what I needed to do. I navigated to the Azure portal login. My fingers moved on muscle memory, credentials I'd typed 10,000 times over the years. Access granted. The dashboard loaded. Green lights everywhere. 99.99% uptime for the past 6 months. It was beautiful. A symphony of virtual machines, databases, and load balancers all humming in perfect harmony. I checked the billing tab and there it was. My personal credit card, my email address, my tax ID number. $38,000 per month in charges, all flowing through my American Express. Years ago, when we were still a scrappy startup, Brian had told me, just put it on your card, Scott, we'll expense it back to you. We need to move fast. So I did. I moved fast and I didn't break things. I built them. Because I was the one who set everything up, because I was the one who maintained it all, and because our legal department was too busy playing golf to audit the vendor contracts, the entire infrastructure of a $180 million company was technically, legally, and physically mine. They hadn't just fired an employee, they'd evicted the landlord. I closed the laptop. The stars were coming out now. I wasn't going to panic, I wasn't going to make angry phone calls, I was going to finish my beer, and then I was going to wait. Because you don't interrupt your enemy when they're making a mistake. To understand why a simple email triggered what happened next, you need to know about Kevin Morrison. Kevin arrived 3 weeks ago like a bad idea wrapped in expensive cologne. He was our new CFO, brought in to streamline operations and optimize efficiency, which is corporate speak for fire the people who actually do the work and replace them with my fraternity brothers. Kevin was 29, looked 24, and had teeth so white they probably glowed in the dark. He wore those quilted vests that scream I read about technology in Forbes, but I've never actually built anything. He walked with the confident bounce of a man who'd never been told no, and certainly never had to debug a kernel panic at 3 a.m. on a Sunday. Our first meeting was in the glass-walled conference room we called the Fish Bowl. Brian introduced him as a change agent. I introduced myself as the guy who makes sure his email actually gets delivered. Scott, Kevin said, testing my name like it was a cheap wine. Infrastructure architect. That sounds heavy. Do we really need all that internal overhead? I know some guys at Cloud Next Solutions who could probably manage our stack for half the cost. I kept my voice level. Cloud Next was a reseller outfit that couldn't handle our morning login traffic, let alone our full production load. Kevin, we handle 2 terabytes of data processing per hour across 47 different client environments. Your friends would crash their systems in 10 minutes. He laughed, a hollow sound like air escaping from a tire. Legacy thinking, Scott. We need to be agile. We need to be serverless. We need AI-driven scalability. He was throwing buzzwords at me like confetti, words he'd probably learned from a TED Talk. We are serverless where it makes sense, I replied. And our auto-scaling is based on real-time metrics I wrote myself. Right, he said, waving dismissively. Custom scripts. That feels very 2010. We need a holistic platform approach. I stopped listening. I knew the type. He wasn't an engineer. He was a demolition crew disguised as an architect. He didn't want to understand the system. He wanted to mark his territory. Over the next few weeks, I watched him sniffing around. He wasn't doing work. He was building a case. He'd hover behind junior developers asking invasive questions about costs. How much do we spend on compute? Why is this line item so high? Who authorizes these instances? He was looking for fat to trim, and in his eyes, I was prime beef. I tried to warn them. 3 months ago, I sent a detailed memo titled Critical Infrastructure Asset Transfer Requirements. I explained that our entire Azure organization, our GitHub repositories, our domain registrations, all of it was legally owned by Scott Reynolds Consulting LLC, a shell company I'd set up years ago for tax purposes. I urged them to transfer everything to Data Vault Systems, Inc. The meeting was painful. Brian looked at the transfer costs. Microsoft charges fees for subscription changes and reserved instance transfers. About $25,000 in administrative overhead. $25,000? Brian scoffed, spitting crumbs from his muffin across the conference table. Just leave it, Scott. We have an implied agreement. We'll clean it up when we go public. I warned legal. Jason Webb, our general counsel, who spent more time on the golf course than reviewing contracts, told me, as long as we're paying the bills, we're fine. Don't be such a bureaucrat, Scott. So every month, Azure charged my Amex $38,000. I submitted expense reports. Data Vault reimbursed me. Technically, I was a vendor providing cloud services to a client, and yesterday that client fired me without notice and without a termination clause. The next morning in Yellowstone, I woke up with a headache. For about 5 seconds, muscle memory kicked in, and I reached for my phone to check the overnight monitoring alerts. Then reality crashed back. Not my problem anymore. But curiosity got the better of me. I sat up in the hotel bed and opened my laptop. I tried logging into my corporate email first. Account disabled. I tried Slack. You've been removed from this workspace. I tried our VPN. Authentication failed. It was thorough. Kevin had obviously given the order to our IT team, my team, kids I'd hired and trained, to scrub me from existence. I could picture Ryan Foster, my lead developer, probably typing the disable commands with shaking hands, wondering if he was next. But they'd locked the front door while forgetting I owned the building. I opened a private browser and went to the Azure portal. Not the corporate single sign-on that was definitely dead, but the root login, the master account. Username, scott.reynolds@outlook.com. Password, redacted. Two-factor authentication from my personal phone. I held my breath. If Kevin was even 10% as smart as his LinkedIn profile claimed, he would have forced an account transfer before firing me. Welcome to Microsoft Azure. The dashboard loaded. I laughed out loud, a sound that probably scared the wildlife. They hadn't touched it. They hadn't even looked at it. To Kevin, the cloud was just a utility bill. He didn't understand that accounts are tied to legal entities, that ownership matters, that you can't just wish away 22 years of accumulated technical debt. I pulled up the resource groups. There it all was, the production environment, the staging systems, the disaster recovery instances, the backup archives. Real-time metrics showed CPU usage spiking as the East Coast started their workday. Auto-scaling groups were spinning up new virtual machines. The system was breathing, and I was holding the oxygen mask. I opened a command prompt. Even after they'd revoked my corporate access, I still had my SSH keys hard-coded into the Bastion hosts because I'd set up the security architecture myself. I needed emergency access that bypassed corporate authentication in case the identity servers went down. SSH Scott at prod Bastion 001 connected. I was inside the network. I was a ghost in the machine. I could see active user sessions, Ryan working on a database query, Nicole Hayes from security running her morning vulnerability scans. They were working normally, completely unaware that their former boss was watching them through the digital equivalent of a one-way mirror. I could burn it all down right now. A simple arm-rf/command would wipe everything. But that was criminal, and I'm not a criminal. I'm a professional. I wanted them to understand exactly what they'd lost, not just wake up to smoking ruins. I checked my phone. It was 9:50 a.m. Mountain Time, 11:50 a.m. in Colorado where our headquarters sat. Perfect timing. I opened the Azure portal and navigated to the monitoring dashboard, the control panel that tells our engineers if the system is healthy. It's like the instrument panel on an airplane. I selected the main dashboard configuration and clicked delete. Within seconds, I saw the panic start in our internal Slack channel, which I was monitoring through a back door I'd left on a forgotten staging server. Ryan Dev. Guys, my dashboard just went blank. Nicole/sec. Same here, getting resource not found errors. New guy intern. Is the internet broken? Ryan Dev. No, Slack is working. The monitoring widgets are just gone. Step 1, complete. I'd blinded them. They couldn't see traffic spikes, error rates, or system health. They were flying a passenger jet in a thunderstorm with duct tape over the instruments. Now for the engines. I went to the API gateway configuration, the front door for all our web applications and mobile apps. Every time a customer tries to log in, check their account, or upload data, the request goes through here. Currently configured for 15,000 requests per second. I changed the limit to 0 and clicked save. It took exactly 8 seconds for the explosion. Support bot, alert, ticket volume spike, 73 new support requests in 30 seconds. Ryan Dev, I'm getting 503 errors on everything. Nicole Sec, the entire application is down. New guy intern, what do we do? Who knows how to fix the API limits? Ryan Dev, that was Scott's domain. I don't even have admin access to that gateway. Pure chaos. Beautiful, methodical chaos. I opened Twitter and searched for Data Vault. The complaints were already pouring in. At angry customer, is at Data Vault down? Can't access my files. At Tech Reporter, reports of major outage at Data Vault systems. Timing suspicious given rumors of executive changes. Crypto Trader 99. At Data Vault rugged me. My data is frozen. My personal phone started buzzing. Text from Brian. Scott, are you seeing this? System is completely down. Need you on a call ASAP. I laughed and took a sip of coffee. He thinks I work for him. I texted back. Who is this? While the digital world burned around them, I ordered breakfast from room service, Eggs Benedict, because when you're destroying a company, you might as well eat well. By 1 p.m., they'd figured out this wasn't a technical glitch. My phone was ringing constantly. Calls from Brian, calls from Jason the lawyer, calls from numbers I didn't recognize. I ignored them all. Then my phone buzzed with a text from Ryan. Scott, I just landed back from the Denver conference. Everything is on fire. Kevin is screaming at everyone. Brian looks like he's going to have a heart attack. What happened? Ryan was a good kid. He didn't deserve this mess. I typed back. They fired me yesterday. Turns out I own the infrastructure. 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Finally, oh God, the Azure account. Bingo. Scott, Brian is an idiot and Kevin is a fraud, but we have clients, small businesses depending on our platform. You have to turn it back on. And there it was, the guilt trip. They knew exactly which buttons to push. I can't, Ryan. I'm not an employee. I have no authorization to operate Data Vault systems. That would be a liability. This isn't funny. People are panicking. I typed the line I'd been saving. You fired the cloud. My phone rang immediately. Ryan, calling from what sounded like a busy airport. Scott, he was almost shouting over the background noise. I'm firing Kevin right now. I'm calling an emergency board meeting. Just please give us access back. It's not that simple anymore, Ryan. The trust is gone. You let a guy with an MBA and no technical knowledge dismantle everything I built. You let him fire me while I was finally taking time off after losing my wife. What do you want? Name your price. Double salary, equity, we can override, Brian. I don't want a job, Ryan. I want a buyout. Scott Reynolds Consulting LLC is open to acquisition offers. But after this morning's excitement, the price just went up. How much? $4.2 million. Cash plus full vesting of my stock options. Silence. Long, heavy silence. That's extortion. No, Ryan. Extortion is threatening to delete the data. This is business. You want to buy a fully operational enterprise cloud infrastructure with proven uptime. That's market rate. Actually, it's a discount. Building this from scratch would cost you $15 million and take 3 years. I'll take it to the board, he whispered. You do that. And Ryan? Tell Kevin his holistic platform approach just cost the company more in one morning than my salary for the next decade. At 3 p.m., my phone rang. Conference call from Delaware, corporate headquarters. I put it on speaker and set it next to my lunch. Scott, this is Garrett Phillips, chairman of the board. You have the full board on the line. Hi, Garrett. Remember last year's Christmas party when you asked me to fix your grandson's Xbox? Good times. Let's skip the pleasantries, Scott. We understand there's a dispute about account ownership. No dispute, Garrett. I have the receipts. You have the outage. We're prepared to offer immediate reinstatement with a 25% raise, and we'll address the management issues. I'm not coming back. That bridge didn't just burn. You poured gasoline on it and threw a match. I don't work for people who treat 22 years of service like disposable hardware. Then we'll accept your buyout offer. $4.2 million. We can wire it today. He folded too quickly. That told me everything I needed to know about how desperate they were. Draft the contract. Send it to my personal email. Once the funds clear, I'll transfer the credentials. We need access now, Scott, Brian interrupted, his voice shaky. The stock is tanking. Clients are threatening to leave. Funds first, I said. That's how business works, Brian. You don't get the merchandise until you pay. We can't wait for a wire to clear. That takes days. Should have thought of that before you fired the account holder. But while I was negotiating with Data Vault's board, something interesting happened. I got an email from Angela Stone, CTO at CyberShield Corp., our biggest competitor. Subject line, offer letter. Angela and I had been talking casually for months. She knew I was unhappy at Data Vault. When the news broke about our outage, she didn't just send sympathy. She sent an opportunity. Position, Chief Technology Officer. Salary $280,000, double my Data Vault package. Signing bonus, $500,000, equity, substantial. But the real kicker was her text message. Hold the line. We're preparing a hostile takeover bid. If their stock drops another 15%, we can acquire them for parts. We want you to run the integration. The game had changed. I wasn't just selling access to my infrastructure. I was about to become the CTO of the company that would own Data Vault. I texted Angela back. They're bleeding out. How long before you make the offer? 2 hours. We're announcing a tender offer at $8 per share, 50% below yesterday's close. I hung up on the Data Vault board call and waited. 90 minutes later, the news broke. Breaking, CyberShield Corp announces hostile takeover bid for Data Vault systems at significant discount to market value. My phone exploded with notifications. The Data Vault board was probably having a meltdown. They weren't just fighting me anymore, they were fighting for their existence. And I held all the cards. Angela called me that evening. They accepted. $7 per share. It's a fire sale. Congratulations, I said. You just bought yourself a very expensive lesson in vendor management. We bought the customer list and the IP. The infrastructure? Well, we have our own systems. We just need the data migrated. Lucky for us, we just hired the person with the keys. I accept your offer, I said, but I want to restore Data Vault systems my way. As long as everything's green by tomorrow morning, I don't care how you do it. That night, I sent one final email to the Data Vault board. Subject: resolution. From Scott Reynolds, CTO-elect, CyberShield Corp. As you're aware, CyberShield has acquired Data Vault Systems. As incoming CTO, I'll be assuming control of all technical assets. Service will be restored within the hour. Regarding that $4.2 million we discussed, since we now own you, that's moot. However, I've attached an invoice for $38,000 for this month's Azure bill. Please remit payment to my Amex immediately. Kevin, I suggest backing up your files. Executive email servers get wiped first during security audits. Warm regards, Scott. I logged back into Azure. I reset the API gateway limits to normal. I restored the monitoring dashboards. I re-enabled all the security groups. The whole process took maybe 10 minutes. Slowly, the red graphs turned green. Error rates dropped to 0. The digital heartbeat returned. But it wasn't their system anymore. It was mine. And now it belonged to CyberShield. 2 days later, I was in CyberShield's headquarters in Austin, not as a vendor or contractor, but as the new CTO. The acquisition was official, and there was a joint press conference. I wasn't supposed to be on stage, just the technical guy in the background. But Angela insisted. You're the story here, Scott. The internet loves a good comeback tale. We watched from backstage as Brian took the podium. He looked like he'd aged 10 years in 48 hours. His voice was flat, defeated. We believe this merger represents the best path forward for all stakeholders. Then Angela took the mic. She was sharp, professional, confident. She thanked Brian with the kind of dismissive politeness you reserve for a waiter who spilled soup on your shirt. Leading our combined technical operations, she announced, Chief Technology Officer Scott Reynolds. I walked out to scattered applause. Flash bulbs popped. I saw Brian flinch. In the back, I spotted Kevin standing near the exit, no longer wearing his signature vest, just a wrinkled suit. He looked small. I took the microphone. Technical debt is real, I said. But the most expensive debt any company can accumulate is human debt. When you treat your foundation people like legacy hardware, you don't just lose efficiency, you lose your foundation entirely. I looked directly at Kevin. He studied his shoes. Data Vault forgot who held up their sky, I continued. At CyberShield, we build systems that last. After the conference, Brian tried to approach me. Scott, he said with a fake smile, no hard feelings, right? It's just business. I looked at him and thought about my wife's funeral, about all the nights I'd missed, all the sacrifice. It wasn't business, Brian. Business involves paying your vendors and respecting your people. You were just a squatter. I walked past him toward my new office, a corner space with windows overlooking the Colorado River, real furniture, real coffee machine, and most importantly, a team that understood what I brought to the table. I sat down at my new desk. Company-issued laptop, username scott.reynolds@cybershield.com, access level administrator. On my desk, I placed a small framed photo of my wife from our last vacation together. She would have laughed at this whole mess. Always said I was too loyal for my own good. But maybe loyalty isn't the problem. Maybe it's who you choose to be loyal to. They tried to delete me from their system. Instead, they just gave me a better operating system with more memory and faster processors. Now I had a team that valued experience, a company that understood what real infrastructure looks like, and the satisfaction of knowing that sometimes, just sometimes, the good guys win. Funny how some people never learn that when you fire the person who built the foundation, the whole building tends to come down. I didn't need to destroy Data Vault. I just stopped holding it up. And from my new corner office, I had a perfect view of exactly how far they fell.
Okay, so should we get back to playing? I forgot to resubscribe to my wife. Oh no. That's okay. That's okay. JP, thank you for the lurk. Soja, thank you for the lurk. Work in the morning. You work tomorrow? You don't have a holiday? I thought everybody had a holiday tomorrow. Retreating to syrup bed. JP, thank you for being here, friend. It's so good to see you. I know it's super late for you. I hope you have a wonderful rest. Tomorrow is Victoria Day. We are celebrating the birth of Queen Victoria. She is the queen of what is it? Confederation. The Queen of Confederation, essentially. So we get a day off. Who actually says definitely No, not I. It's definitely. Yeah, I think most people say it like that. Or if you're in Quebec, it's what JP said. What is that, like Patriots Day? How come we don't get that date? I don't know. You should. You're a Commonwealth. And then the Americans are getting Crying American. Well, you get a holiday next week. It's Memorial Day, right? I love Crying American though. That's good. Okay, Wrecker's lurking. JP's lurking. Soja's lurking. Everyone's abandoning me. It's fine. I won't take it personally. I'm keeping notes on who's leaving right now. You're all going on a list. You forgot. You forgot you have a holiday? I'm muted? Don't... Oh. Not for you I'm muted. Oh my gosh, don't do that to me. That was so mean. So he's lurking, he muted me, and he tabbed away. That means my own husband doesn't even count as a viewer anymore. Isn't that rude? Alright, we're gonna do a skillful sleep. Let's actually play a game, hey? You guys wanna play a game, bud? Why do the Patriots get a holiday? Because they're the greatest football team of all time? I actually don't care or know anything about them. Tyler goes to the naughty list like every year, constantly.